I am Kimberly Watson, 32 years old, and tonight was supposed to be the pinnacle of my career. After 10 years of sacrifices, I finally made senior marketing director. The table at LeBlanc was set for 5 champagne chilling in the silver bucket beside me. My phone buzzed. One text from Mom changed everything. Sorry, cannot make it. Jason got accepted to law school. Throwing him a surprise party. You are not our priority right now. My trembling fingers nearly dropped the phone. Again. Always Jason. If you are watching this from somewhere you have felt invisible, hit subscribe and leave a comment telling me where you are from. This story might just help you set yourself free. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, I learned early that being the firstborn Watson child meant carrying expectations, not receiving celebrations. Our modest 2-story home on Maple Street housed 4 people, but only 3 seemed to matter when it came to family decisions. From the beginning, the dynamic was clear through the family photos that lined our hallway. Jason being held by both parents, Jason blowing out birthday candles with Mom and Dad beaming Jason at his high school graduation with our parents, looking like they had won the lottery. Then there were the few photos of me usually standing slightly off-center, my achievements relegated to the background. Jason was 5 years younger, with our father Richard's charismatic smile and our mother Diane's artistic flair. From his first steps, Jason commanded attention without effort. When he drew stick figures, they were displayed on the refrigerator for months. When I brought home straight, as my report card was signed with a quick, "Good job," before being tucked away in a drawer. He needs more encouragement, Mom would say, whenever I pointed out the disparity. You are naturally gifted, Kimberly. Jason struggles more. The truth was, Jason never really struggled. He simply knew how to play the game better than I did. He would procrastinate on school projects, creating last-minute panic that mobilized the entire family to help him. My projects were completed weeks in advance, my diligence mistaken for ease. When I announced my intention to pursue marketing after high school, Dad frowned over his newspaper. Marketing, that is just convincing people to buy things they do not need. Mom was more direct. We always thought you would go into medicine or law, something substantial. Interestingly, when Jason announced his interest in law school years later, after drifting between 3 different college majors, my parents responded with enthusiastic support and offers to help with applications. I entered State University on a partial scholarship, working 20 hours weekly at the campus bookstore to cover remaining costs. My internship at Wilson Marketing during junior year meant early mornings and late nights rushing between classes and work. No one from my family attended my college graduation because Jason had a regional baseball tournament the same weekend. You understand, right? This could lead to a scholarship for him. Mom explained over the phone while I sat alone in my dorm room, staring at the cap and gown hanging on my closet door. My 10-year journey from marketing intern to senior director was paved with 60-hour work weeks, working holidays when needed, and postponing vacations to handle crucial campaigns. Each promotion was met with the same lukewarm response from my family. That is nice, dear, Mom would say, before quickly changing the subject to Jason's latest adventure. He had taken a year off to find himself in Europe, another year to try starting a band, and most recently had decided law might be his calling after all. Thomas entered my life 6 years ago, a software engineer I met during a collaborative project between our companies. He noticed immediately how I downplayed my accomplishments and how tense I became before family visits. Your achievements deserve celebration, he told me, after witnessing a particularly painful family dinner where my parents spent 2 hours discussing Jason's potential without once asking about my recent promotion to marketing manager. Thomas became my strongest advocate, the person who ensured my victories were acknowledged, even if only between us. When I received news of the senior director position, he was the one who insisted we plan a proper celebration. Invite your family, he encouraged. Give them another chance. This is huge, Kimberly. Despite my reservations, I called my parents that evening. I have some exciting news, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. I have been promoted to senior marketing director, the youngest in company history. Oh, that is wonderful, Mom replied, her tone suggesting she was multitasking during our conversation. What does that mean exactly? I explained the significance: managing a team of 15 people overseeing multi-million-dollar campaigns, a 40% salary increase. Dad got on the line and asked a few questions about benefits before the conversation shifted predictably. Did we tell you Jason is waiting to hear back from Northwestern Law? Their admissions office hinted he has a strong application. Still, they agreed to attend the celebration dinner I proposed. I even called my brother personally, explaining how much it would mean to have him there. He promised to come, though he sounded distracted. I spent hours planning the perfect evening at LeBlanc, the upscale restaurant downtown known for its exquisite French cuisine. The reservation was not easy to secure, but I mentioned my company's connection to the owner, making sure we would have the corner table with the city view. I wanted everything to be perfect, convinced that perhaps this achievement would finally be significant enough for my family to truly see me. The night before the dinner, I lay awake beside Thomas, voicing my recurring fear. What if they find some reason not to show up? Then we will celebrate with people who truly value you, he replied, kissing my forehead. But give them a chance to get this right. With cautious optimism, I bought a new dress for the occasion, a sophisticated navy blue sheath that projected the confidence of my new position. Perhaps this time would be different. Perhaps this milestone would finally bridge the gap between my family's perception and my reality. The morning I received news of my promotion began like any other Tuesday at Wilson Marketing Headquarters. I arrived at 7:30 a.m., armed with my usual triple-shot latte and the presentation for our newest client, a sustainable fashion brand looking to increase their market penetration. The company had been struggling to secure this account for months, and I had spent countless evenings perfecting our pitch. Margaret Wilson, the company founder and CEO, called me into her office immediately upon my arrival. My heart raced as I feared there might be last-minute changes needed for the presentation. "Kimberly, take a seat," she said, her expression unreadable. Behind stylish black-rimmed glasses, Margaret was known for her direct approach and impeccable business instincts. At 62, she had built the company from nothing into one of the most respected marketing firms in the Midwest. "The board and I have been discussing the future of our executive team," she began, shuffling through some papers on her immaculate desk. "As you know, Donald is retiring next month." Donald Hayes had been the senior marketing director for nearly 15 years. His position was coveted by everyone in the company with more than 5 years of experience. "We need someone innovative, someone who understands both traditional marketing strategies and the digital landscape," Margaret continued. "Someone who has consistently shown dedication and results." I nodded, wondering if she was about to ask for my input on potential candidates. "After careful consideration, we would like to offer you the position of Senior Marketing Director, effective immediately." The words hung in the air for several seconds before I fully processed them. Me. But there are others with more seniority and... Margaret held up her hand. "Seniority is not everything. Results matter more, and your campaigns have consistently outperformed expectations. You will be the youngest senior director in our history, but we have complete confidence in your abilities." The meeting continued with discussions about my new responsibilities, salary package, and the team I would be managing. When I finally left Margaret's office an hour later, my colleagues noticed something had changed. "What happened? You look like you just won the lottery," said Stephanie Reynolds, my closest friend at the company and our social media strategist. When I shared the news, the office erupted in genuine congratulations. Stephanie hugged me tightly. "You absolutely deserve this. No one works harder than you do." By lunchtime, emails and messages from colleagues throughout the company flooded my inbox. Several senior colleagues who might have resented being passed over, instead stopped by my office with sincere congratulations. Donald Hayes himself called from his vacation in Florida to express his approval of his successor. "You will take this department further than I ever could," he said. "Marketing is evolving, and you understand where it is heading." The contrast between my colleagues' reactions and what I anticipated from my family was stark. These people who knew me professionally but not intimately recognized my value more readily than those who had known me my entire life. When Thomas called during my lunch break, I could barely contain my excitement. They chose me, Thomas. Not Jeffrey with his 15 years of experience, not Paula who manages our biggest accounts. Me. "Of course they did," he replied, his voice filled with pride. "You are exceptional at what you do. This calls for a proper celebration. Dinner at that French place you have been talking about." "I already made reservations for Friday," I admitted. "For 5 people. I invited my parents and Jason." There was a brief pause before Thomas responded, supportively. "That is great. I hope they realize what an incredible accomplishment this is. They have to write. This is not just another promotion. This is the position people work their entire careers to achieve." After work, I went shopping for the perfect outfit. The navy blue dress I found at Nordstrom was elegant without being flashy professional, yet celebratory. The sales associate helped me select accessories that completed the look: silver teardrop earrings and matching bracelet and black heels that added 3 inches to my height. I wanted to look the part of the senior executive I now was. The days leading up to Friday's dinner were a whirlwind of transitioning into my new role, meeting with my team members individually, and familiarizing myself with ongoing projects that would now fall under my supervision. Despite the hectic schedule, my mind frequently wandered to the upcoming dinner. I checked in with my parents twice to confirm they remembered. "Yes, Kimberly, we have it on the calendar," Mom assured me, though I detected impatience in her voice. "LeBlanc at 7 p.m. on Friday." Friday arrived with perfect early autumn weather. I left work early for once, taking time to have my hair styled in a sophisticated updo at the salon near our apartment. Thomas planned to meet me directly at the restaurant after finishing his own workday. I arrived at LeBlanc 30 minutes early, wanting to ensure everything would be perfect. The maitre d' recognized me from previous business dinners and led me to the corner table I had requested. The view of the city skyline was spectacular, the Chicago lights just beginning to twinkle as sunset approached. "Would you like to order champagne for the table, Miss Watson?" the waiter asked after I was seated. "Yes, please. Your best bottle. We are celebrating a significant promotion tonight." The champagne arrived in a silver bucket, perfectly chilled. I sat alone watching the door, checking my phone periodically. 7 p.m. came and went, with no sign of my family. 7:15, 7:30. At 7:30, I texted Mom, "Are you on your way? We have champagne waiting." No immediate response came. I smiled politely at the waiter, who returned to see if I wanted to order appetizers. "Just a few more minutes, please. My family should be arriving shortly." At 7:45, I tried calling both parents. Neither answered. The champagne in my glass had lost its bubbles, much like my initial excitement was beginning to deflate. I texted Jason, who also did not respond. The restaurant had filled with other patrons, couples, and groups, engaged in lively conversation. Their laughter and the clinking of glasses became a painful backdrop to my growing anxiety. By 7:50, I was checking my social media accounts to see if anyone had posted anything that might explain their absence. Had there been an accident? A sudden illness? Nothing appeared unusual on their pages. At precisely 8:17 p.m., my phone finally buzzed with an incoming message. The sound sent a rush of relief through me, my mind already formulating excuses for my family. Perhaps heavy traffic. Maybe Dad took the wrong exit again. I reached for my phone, a smile ready on my lips to dismiss their tardiness to the waiter, who had been giving me increasingly sympathetic glances. When I saw the message was from Mom, I felt an initial wave of relief. Then I read the words that would forever change my relationship with my family. Sorry, cannot make it. Jason got accepted to law school, throwing him a surprise party. You are not our priority right now. The words blurred as tears threatened to spill onto my phone screen. Not, we are so sorry. Not, can we reschedule? Not even a decent excuse. Just the brutal honesty that I had always suspected but had never seen, stated so plainly I was not their priority. I never had been. My hands trembled as I reread the message, wondering if perhaps I had misunderstood. But the words remained unchanged, their meaning unmistakable. I remembered Jason mentioning he was on a wait list at Northwestern, but not that a final decision was imminent, certainly not important enough to mention, when I invited them all to my celebration dinner. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. They had likely known about this potential acceptance when I called about my promotion. They had agreed to my dinner with no intention of attending if Jason's news came through. I was, as always, the contingency plan, the obligation to be fulfilled, only if nothing more interesting presented itself. My mind flashed back to countless similar incidents throughout my life. My high school graduation, where they left immediately after the ceremony to attend Jason's baseball tournament, missing the honors luncheon where I received awards. My college art exhibition, which they attended for merely 20 minutes before leaving early because Jason had called with car trouble that turned out to be just an empty gas tank. My first apartment, which I moved into alone, while they helped Jason settle into his freshman dorm across town. I was startled from these painful recollections by the sound of someone calling my name. Thomas had arrived, his face lighting up when he spotted me before quickly shifting to concern as he approached the table. Kimberly, what is wrong? You look like you have seen a ghost. I tried to compose myself, forcing a smile that felt brittle on my face. Just tired from the big week, I guess. Thomas knew me too well to accept this explanation. He sat beside me rather than across the table, taking my hand. Where is everyone? It is almost 8:30. The kindness in his voice nearly broke my carefully constructed composure. I handed him my phone wordlessly, the message from my mother still displayed on the screen. Thomas read it, his expression changing from confusion to disbelief to anger. Are you serious? They canceled your celebration dinner for Jason via text message. Apparently, he got accepted to law school today. I explained, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. Northwestern, probably. He was waitlisted. And that could not wait until tomorrow. Or they could not have called you properly to explain. This is completely unacceptable, Kimberly. His outrage on my behalf was both comforting and painful. Comforting because it validated that my hurt was justified, painful because it confirmed how abnormal my family's behavior truly was. Just then, my colleagues Stephanie and Michael arrived, having accepted my last-minute invitation when I realized my family might not show. Their presence saved me from having to respond to Thomas, immediately allowing me a moment to collect myself. Senior Director Watson Stephanie called, cheerfully approaching our table. Ready to celebrate with the marketing dream team. I stood to greet them, pasting on a professional smile. Thank you both for coming on such short notice. My family had a situation come up. Thomas shot me a look but said nothing as the waiter brought fresh champagne and took our dinner orders. I tried to engage in the conversation to appreciate these friends who had shown up for me, but my mind kept returning to that text message. During a lull in conversation, I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment alone. In the elegant marble bathroom of LeBlanc, I leaned against the counter and checked my phone again. No follow-up message from Mom. No explanation. Nothing. Out of morbid curiosity, I opened Instagram. The algorithm, knowing my family connections, immediately showed me a post from my cousin Laura's surprise celebration for Jason's law school acceptance. So proud of our future lawyer number, family love number, future attorney. The photo showed my parents' living room decorated with blue and white streamers, the Northwestern colors, and a banner reading, "Congratulations, Jason." My parents, several aunts and uncles, and at least a dozen family friends were gathered around my brother, who looked genuinely surprised and pleased. The timestamp showed it had been posted just 30 minutes after my mother's text to me. Their house was 15 minutes from LeBlanc. They could have invited me to join them after my dinner. They could have scheduled his celebration for another day. They could have at least called to explain properly. Instead, they had made their priorities crystal clear. I returned to the table, somehow making it through dinner, with appropriate smiles and responses. Thomas kept his hand on mine throughout the meal, a silent show of support that kept me grounded. Stephanie and Michael shared funny office stories and outlined ambitious ideas they were excited to work on under my leadership. By the time dessert arrived, a beautiful chocolate souffle the chef had prepared specially for my promotion, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Jason. "Hey sis, guess what I got into Northwestern? Mom and Dad threw me a surprise party. Everyone is here. It is wild. Where are you?" He did not know. They had not even told him about my dinner. I set the phone down without responding, unable to process this additional layer of hurt. I barely tasted the souffle that I robotically spooned into my mouth. When Thomas suggested we call it an early night, I nodded gratefully. We thanked Stephanie and Michael for coming, promised to properly celebrate at the office on Monday, and left the restaurant just after 10 p.m. The drive home from LeBlanc was silent for the first few minutes. Thomas kept glancing over at me, clearly concerned, but giving me space to process my thoughts. The city lights blurred outside the window as I stared unseeing at the passing buildings. "Do you want to talk about it?" he finally asked as we stopped at a red light. "What is there to say?" My voice sounded strangely calm even to my own ears. They made their choice. Again. "What they did was incredibly hurtful and disrespectful," Thomas said, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the steering wheel tighter. "A simple phone call would have shown basic human courtesy." The light turned green, and we continued toward our apartment in Lincoln Park. My phone buzzed again in my purse, then again, and again. I ignored it. "Aren't you going to check that?" Thomas asked. "It is probably just more updates from the Jason celebration extravaganza," I replied bitterly, but pulled out my phone anyway. 3 new Instagram notifications. My Aunt Beatrice had posted more photos of the party. In one, my mother was placing a crown reading "future lawyer" on Jason's head. In another, my father was making a toast, his face beaming with pride. The third showed Jason blowing out candles on a cake decorated to look like a law book. "They baked him a cake," I whispered. "They never even brought a store-bought cake to any of my promotion celebrations." "Did they ever actually attend any of your promotion celebrations?" Thomas asked quietly. The question hit me like a slap. I realized with sudden clarity that no, they never had. For each milestone in my career, I had invited them. For each milestone, they had found a reason not to come. Jason's baseball game, Mom's book club, Dad's fishing trip with colleagues. Always something just important enough to seem reasonable, but always demonstrating where their priorities truly lay. As we pulled into our parking space, my phone rang. Mom's face appeared on the screen. I stared at it for several rings before finally answering. "Hello?" My voice sounded distant, as if someone else was speaking. "Kimberly, are you still at that restaurant?" Mom sounded slightly breathless, background noise suggesting the party was still in full swing. "No, we just got home." "Oh, good. Listen, Jason really wants some of that chocolate cake from the bakery near your apartment. The one with the raspberry filling. Could you pick one up and bring it over? Everyone is still here, and we are running low on dessert." The request was so absurd, so completely tone-deaf, that for a moment, I thought I had misheard her. "You want me to bring dessert to Jason's party? Tonight?" I clarified, putting the phone on speaker so Thomas could hear. "Yes, if you could." "Oh, and Robert and Susan are asking about those marketing contacts you mentioned last Christmas. Robert's son is looking for an internship. Could you bring that information too?" Thomas's expression darkened as he heard this. I felt something shift inside me, a breaking point reached after decades of bending to accommodate my family's expectations. "Mom, I just had my promotion dinner, alone, because all of you chose to celebrate Jason instead." There was a pause before she responded, her voice carrying a hint of annoyance. "Well, we could not exactly plan when his acceptance letter would arrive, Kimberly. This was important. And my promotion was not." "Of course it was, but this is law school. Northwestern. This affects his entire future. And becoming the youngest senior marketing director in company history does not affect mine." Another pause. "You know what I mean. You have always been successful. You do not need the celebration the way Jason does. He needs the encouragement." The familiar refrain landed differently this time. Instead of making me doubt my right to recognition, it clarified exactly how my family viewed me: as a resource, not as a person with needs and feelings of her own. "I am not bringing cake," I said flatly. "Enjoy the party." I hung up before she could respond, turning my phone off completely. Thomas wrapped his arms around me as I finally allowed the tears to fall. 10 years, I sobbed against his shoulder. 10 years of working myself to exhaustion to prove I was worthy of their attention, and they could not give me one evening. We moved to the living room sofa, where I continued to cry until no more tears would come. Eventually, my sadness gave way to a cold, clear anger, unlike anything I had experienced before. "Do you know what the worst part is?" I asked Thomas, who had been silently supporting me through my emotional storm. "It is not even about the dinner. It is that they have never seen me, not once, for who I actually am." Thomas nodded. "They take you for granted." "More than that. They use me." The realization came with sudden clarity. Think about it. Who do they call when they need help with technology? Me. When they need a loan until payday? Me. When the basement flooded last year? When Aunt Carol needed a place to stay for a week? When they wanted connections for Jason's previous internships? I stood up and began pacing the room, energy surging through me as years of repressed resentment surfaced. And what do I get in return? Not even the basic respect of a phone call to cancel dinner, a text message. A text message telling me I am not their priority. My phone remained off, but I knew what would happen when I turned it back on. There would be messages asking for something else, some other way I could be useful to them. Never considering what I might need, especially tonight of all nights. Then I remembered something that made the situation even more ridiculous. Jason did not even get formally accepted to Northwestern. He told me last week he was waitlisted. I bet they just moved him up the list today. So not even a full acceptance. Thomas looked confused. Number? And here is another thing I would bet money on. They expect me to help pay for his law school. Dad has been hinting about their retirement savings taking a hit with the market downturn. Thomas's expression hardened. "After tonight, you cannot seriously be considering that." "No," I said with a certainty that surprised me. "I am not. In fact, I am not considering helping them with anything anymore." It was as if a lifetime of accumulated slights, dismissals, and outright rejections had suddenly crystallized into a single, undeniable truth: my family did not value me as a person. They valued what I could do for them. And as long as I continued to be available whenever they needed me, nothing would ever change. My breaking point had arrived in the form of a text message. "You are not our priority right now." Well, perhaps it was time they were no longer mine. After a restless night with little sleep, I woke early Saturday morning with an unusual sense of clarity. Thomas was still asleep beside me, his presence, a comforting constant in the chaos of my emotions. I slipped quietly out of bed and made coffee, then sat at our kitchen island with my laptop. For the first time in years, I opened my expense tracking spreadsheet and sorted by recipient. The numbers were illuminating. Over the past 5 years, I had loaned my parents nearly $20,000 for various emergencies. Another $8,000 had gone to Jason for his car repairs, rent when he was between jobs, and the security deposit on his current apartment. None of it had been repaid. Next, I opened my calendar and searched for family events. The pattern was striking: dozens of entries, showing times I had rearranged my schedule to help with family matters. Jason's apartment move, driving dad to medical appointments, helping mom with computer problems, setting up their new television, organizing family holiday gatherings. The list went on and on. Then I checked my text message history. In the past month alone, there were 27 messages from family members asking for some form of assistance: career advice for Jason, technical support for mom's phone, research on vacation rentals for their summer plans, investment advice for dad's retirement account. Most tellingly, there were 0 messages asking how I was doing. No congratulations when I mentioned my promotion possibility 2 weeks ago. No interest in my life beyond what I could provide for theirs. While scrolling through these messages, I found something that made my blood run cold. A text from Jason to me 3 days ago that I had missed in the chaos of my promotion week. Got moved from waitlist to likely accept status at Northwestern. Should know for sure by Friday. He had known. He had known his acceptance might come the same day as my celebration dinner. And he had said nothing, not even to suggest rescheduling. I scrolled further and found a group chat between Jason and my parents from the same day. Jason: Northwestern might send final decision by Friday. Mom: that is wonderful, honey. We will have everything ready for a celebration if it comes through, Dad. Fingers crossed, son. This could be the big break you have been waiting for. They had planned this. The surprise party had been prearranged contingent on his acceptance letter, which meant they had deliberately double-booked the evening, knowing they would choose his celebration over mine if the timing conflicted. As this realization sank in, my phone, which I had turned back on that morning, began buzzing with new messages. Mom, did you see my calls last night? We still need that cake if you can bring it this morning. Everyone loved the party so much they are coming back for brunch. Dad, your mother needs help with the printer again. Can you stop by today? Jason: hey, can we talk about Northwestern financial aid? They offered some, but not enough. Mom thought you might be able to help since you got that big promotion. Call me. Not one message acknowledging what they had done. Not one apology. Just more requests, more expectations, more assumptions that I would continue in my assigned role as family support system. Thomas emerged from the bedroom, hair tousled from sleep. He took one look at my face and asked, "What happened now?" I showed him the messages, including the revealing group chat from earlier in the week. His expression darkened with each one he read. This is beyond inconsiderate, Kimberly. This is manipulative. I nodded, a strange calm settling over me. I have been their safety net for so long they do not even see it anymore. It is just expected. What are you going to do? I closed my laptop decisively. I am going to stop catching them. The plan formed quickly. I would not respond to any messages today. Instead, I would write them a note detailing exactly why I was stepping back from my role as family fixer. I would include a list of all the pending family matters they had expected me to handle, and make it clear that from now on someone else, likely Jason, would need to take responsibility. Are you sure this is what you want? Thomas asked, supportive but concerned. It is a big step. It is necessary, I replied. Nothing will change if I do not change it. I spent the morning drafting the note, careful to be clear without being cruel. I wanted them to understand the impact of their behavior without leaving room for them to dismiss my concerns as mere oversensitivity. The final version read, "To my family, last night you made it abundantly clear where I stand in your priorities. After 10 years of building my career, reaching a pinnacle achievement that only a handful of people in my industry achieve, you chose not to share even 1 hour of celebration with me. Not only that, but you expected me to understand and support your decision without question. This was not an isolated incident. This has been our family dynamic for as long as I can remember. I give you take. I support you accept. I achieve you overlook. I need you are busy." Effective immediately, I am stepping back from my role as family problem solver. Attached is a list of current family matters you have asked me to handle. 1. Dad's retirement account rebalancing. 2. Mom's website for her book club. 3. Jason's law school financial aid research. 4. Cousin Emma's internship at my company. 5. Planning Grandma's 80th birthday party. 6. Researching vacation homes for the family summer trip. 7. Updating the family emergency contact information for all relatives. Let Jason handle it now. He has always been your priority. It is time he becomes your resource as well. I need time and space to reevaluate our relationship and what role, if any, I want you to have in my life going forward. Please respect this boundary by not contacting me for the next 2 weeks. Kimberly. I printed the note and placed it in an envelope, along with my set of keys to their house. Thomas offered to drive me to my parents' home to deliver it. "Are you sure you do not want me to come to the door with you?" he asked as we pulled up to the familiar 2-story house where I had grown up. "No, I need to do this myself," I replied. "Just wait here. I will not be long." Through the windows, I could see movement in the kitchen. Saturday brunch was clearly underway. For a moment, I considered ringing the doorbell, delivering my message in person. But I knew any face-to-face encounter would result in justifications, minimizations, and ultimately, my capitulation. The note was clearer, stronger, and impossible to interrupt or argue with. I slipped the envelope through the mail slot, hearing it fall onto the entryway floor with a soft thud. Then I walked away from the house, and the role I had played for too long. "It is done," I told Thomas as I returned to the car. "Now we leave for the weekend while they process it." We had hastily booked a room at a bed and breakfast on the Michigan shore 2 hours away. A place where I could think, heal, and begin to envision a life where my needs mattered too. As Thomas drove us away from Chicago, I turned off my phone completely. Whatever crisis my absence created, it was no longer my responsibility to solve it. The Lakeview bed and breakfast in South Haven, Michigan, was exactly what I needed: a charming Victorian house perched on a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan, far enough from Chicago to feel like a genuine escape. Our room featured a private balcony with an unobstructed view of the water, the vastness of the lake somehow matching the enormous emotional space I had just created in my life. Thomas carried our hastily packed bags to the room while I checked in with the proprietor, an elegant woman in her 60s named Evelyn, who seemed to sense I was retreating from something without my having to explain. "You look like you could use some peace and quiet," she said, handing me an antique key attached to a wooden fob. "Room 7 has the best view and the most privacy. Breakfast is served from 7 to 10, but if you need anything earlier, just let me know." The first day passed in a blur of long walks on the beach, quiet meals at local restaurants, and hours spent simply staring at the lake. I fluctuated between absolute certainty that I had done the right thing and waves of guilt so intense they left me gasping for breath. What if something happens and they need me? I asked Thomas as we sat on our balcony Saturday evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "They are adults, Kimberly. They managed before you became their personal assistant, and they will manage now," he replied, his tone gentle but firm. And if there is a genuine emergency, they have your email. You said not to contact you for 2 weeks, not forever. I nodded, trying to absorb the wisdom in his words. I just keep thinking about all the ways they might interpret my note. What if they think I am disowning them completely? Is that what you want? The question hung in the air between us. Did I want to cut my family out of my life entirely? No, I finally answered. I do not want to lose them. I just want them to see me. Really see me as a person with my own needs and feelings, not just as a resource they can tap whenever convenient. Then that is what your note accomplished, Thomas assured me. You set a boundary. You showed them there are consequences to taking you for granted. That is not disowning them. That is teaching them how to have a healthy relationship with you. On Sunday morning, we met an older couple at breakfast. Howard and Ellen Benton were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary with a weekend at the B&B. Something about Ellen's warm smile and Howard's kind eyes made me feel comfortable sharing a abbreviated version of why we had come to South Haven so suddenly. Family relationships are always the most complicated, Ellen said after listening to my story. The people who should love us the most sometimes hurt us the most precisely because we expect better from them. Howard nodded in agreement. When our daughter Rachel was in her 30s, we went through something similar. We had always focused more attention on our son because he struggled with learning disabilities. We thought Rachel was fine on her own. She was so capable, so independent. What happened, I asked, seeing parallels to my own situation. She stopped coming home for holidays, Ellen explained. When we finally asked why, she told us she felt invisible in her own family. It was one of the most painful conversations of my life, realizing we had hurt her so deeply without even noticing. How did you fix it? Thomas inquired. We listened, Howard said simply. Really listened, without defending or explaining away our behavior. Then we changed. It took time to rebuild trust, but today we have a wonderful relationship with Rachel. The key was accepting that her feelings were valid even when they were hard to hear, Ellen added, and understanding that loving someone means respecting their boundaries. Their words stayed with me throughout the day as Thomas and I explored the small lakeside town, browsing in art galleries and bookshops. For the first time, I began to see a possible path forward, not one where I continued as before, nor one where I cut all ties, but something new. A relationship with boundaries, with mutual respect, where my needs mattered too. By Sunday evening, I felt strong enough to turn my phone back on, though I decided not to check messages until we returned to Chicago the next day. The mere act of powering up the device sent it into a frenzy of notifications buzzing and dinging repeatedly for nearly a full minute. 42 missed calls, I said to Thomas, staring at the screen in disbelief. 27 voice messages. 63 text messages. Are you going to listen to them now? He asked. I shook my head. Tomorrow, when we are home and I can process whatever they have to say with some distance. We spent our last night at the B&B, peacefully making plans for the week ahead and talking about everything except my family. It felt liberating to exist even briefly in a world where my identity was not defined by my family role. Monday morning, we checked out early to beat traffic back to Chicago. As we loaded our bags into the car, Evelyn handed me a small package wrapped in blue paper. A little something to remind you that creating boundaries is an act of self-love, she said. Inside was a small framed quote. The only people who get upset about you setting boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. The drive home gave me time to prepare mentally for whatever awaited in those 42 missed calls. I sorted them by caller 15 from Mom, 12 from Dad, 10 from Jason, and 5 from various other relatives who had clearly been enlisted in the effort to reach me. I started with the oldest voice message from Saturday around noon, just after I must have delivered my note. Kimberly, this is your mother. What is this note supposed to mean? We had a celebration for your brother. I do not understand why you are being so dramatic about this. Call me immediately. The next few messages followed a similar pattern, dismissive and defensive. By Saturday evening, the tone had shifted to concern. Honey, we are worried about you. No one has been able to reach you all day. Please call us just to let us know you are all right. Sunday morning brought anger again. Kimberly Jean Watson, this behavior is completely unacceptable. Your father and I raised you better than this. Jason needs your help with his financial aid forms, and they are due next week. This is not the time for one of your sensitivity episodes. By Sunday afternoon, desperation had set in. Please, Kimberly, we do not know what to do about all these things you have always handled. Your father tried to look at his retirement account, and he thinks he might have accidentally sold some stocks. We need you to fix it. The final message from late Sunday night was different. For the first time, my mother's voice sounded small and uncertain. I keep reading your note over and over. Did we really make you feel this way all these years? Please call me. I need to understand. Jason's messages evolved similarly, starting with indignation. What is your problem? You know how important this law school thing is to me. And ending with a dawning recognition. I never realized how much we all depend on you. I am sorry about your dinner. I should have remembered. My father, typical to his nature, left fewer and shorter messages, but his final one struck me most deeply. I miss my little girl. I think I have not been the father you deserved. Please come home so we can talk. After listening to all the messages, I spent Monday organizing my thoughts and planning my approach. Thomas offered to accompany me for the inevitable family meeting, but I knew this was something I needed to handle alone. I will be right here waiting when you get back. He promised, kissing me goodbye on Tuesday morning. As I left for the neutral location, I had chosen a quiet cafe halfway between my apartment and my parents' home. I arrived early, selecting a corner table that offered some privacy. My heart pounded as I spotted my parents entering the cafe, looking around anxiously until they saw me. Mom had clearly been crying, her usually impeccable makeup slightly smudged. Dad seemed to have aged years in just a few days, his shoulders hunched forward as if carrying a heavy weight. Jason arrived separately, sliding into the fourth chair with uncharacteristic humility. No one spoke for several long moments. Thank you for meeting me, I finally said, my voice steadier than I expected. I know my note and absence came as a shock. Shock does not begin to describe it, Mom replied, her tone hovering between anger and hurt. You disappeared for 3 days, Kimberly. We had no idea where you were or if you were safe. I told you I needed space. 2 weeks of no contact, I reminded her gently. It has been 3 days. But you have never done anything like this before, Dad interjected. You have always been our reliable one, the one we could count on no matter what. His words, meant as a compliment, only reinforced the very dynamic I was trying to change. That is exactly the problem. I have always been available to all of you, regardless of what was happening in my own life. But when I needed you for just one evening to celebrate something truly important to me, I was not even worth a phone call. Mom shifted uncomfortably. We should have called. The text was thoughtless. I admit that. It was not just the text, I continued. It was what the text revealed about how you see me in this family. Not as someone with needs and feelings of my own, but as a resource to be used whenever convenient. That is not fair, Jason protested, though with less conviction than usual. We love you. I believe you do, I acknowledged. But love without respect is not enough. For years I have shown up for all of you time after time. I have rearranged my schedule, sacrificed my time, provided financial support, and never complained. But it has not been reciprocal. Dad looked down at his coffee cup. We never meant to take advantage. I know, but you did. All of you. I took a deep breath before continuing. Do any of you know what my new position actually entails? The responsibility I now have? The achievement it represents in my industry? Their silence was answer enough. I am the youngest senior marketing director in my company's 40-year history. I manage a team of 15 people and oversee campaigns worth millions of dollars. When I received this promotion, my colleagues celebrated with me. My boss personally congratulated me. Industry peers sent messages of respect and admiration. My voice grew stronger as I continued. Everyone recognized what this meant, except the people who should have cared the most. Mom wiped away a tear. We did not realize how important it was to you. That is just it. You never asked. You never ask about my life, my achievements, my struggles, but you expect me to be intimately involved in yours. Jason, unusually subdued, finally spoke up. I never thought about it that way. When I got the law school news, I just assumed everyone would drop everything like they always have for me. He paused, looking genuinely troubled. That sounds really entitled when I say it out loud. It is how we raised you, Dad admitted. We always made your needs the priority, and we taught Kimberly to do the same. But why, I asked the question that had haunted me for decades. Why was Jason always the priority? Mom and Dad exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. You were always so capable, so independent, Mom finally said. From the time you were little, you figured things out on your own. Jason struggled more. He needed more support. Did it ever occur to you that I became self-sufficient because I had to? That maybe I learned to solve my own problems because no one else would? The realization visibly dawned on my mother's face. Oh, Kimberly, we thought we were responding to your natural independence. We never considered we might have caused it. I needed you too, I said softly. I still do sometimes. Not to solve my problems, but just to be there. To see me. To celebrate with me. To care about what matters to me. We can do better, Dad promised, reaching across the table for my hand. We want to do better. That requires real change, I cautioned. Not just temporary improvements that revert back once the crisis has passed. I need actual sustainable changes in how we relate to each other. What does that look like? Jason asked, and I was surprised by his apparent sincerity. I outlined my boundaries clearly. No more automatic financial support, no more dropping everything to solve their problems, no more one-sided relationships where my needs came last. I would be a daughter and sister, not their personal assistant or emergency fund. And I need acknowledgement when I achieve something important, I added. The same kind of acknowledgement and celebration you have always given Jason. The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, sometimes painful, sometimes healing. There were moments of defensiveness, particularly from Mom, who struggled to accept how her behavior had affected me. There were also moments of genuine connection, perhaps more honest than we had experienced in years. We left with a tentative plan for moving forward. I agreed to help them transition the family matters I had always handled teaching rather than doing. They agreed to respect my boundaries and make efforts to create a more balanced relationship. The following months were not easy. Old patterns reasserted themselves, repeatedly requiring gentle but firm correction. Mom still sometimes acted injured when I said no to a request. Dad occasionally forgot to ask about my work before launching into his own concerns. Jason still expected assistance with tasks he was fully capable of handling himself. But gradually, small changes emerged. Mom began sending occasional text messages just to check in with no requests attached. Dad asked for my advice on his retirement account, rather than expecting me to manage it for him. Jason called to tell me about a legal brief he had successfully filed on his own, seeking approval rather than assistance. 4 months after our confrontation, my parents invited me to dinner not to ask for help with something, but simply to spend time together. At the end of the evening, Dad handed me a small gift bag. We wanted to acknowledge something we should have celebrated properly months ago, he said as I opened it to find a beautiful engraved business card holder. We are so proud of you, Kimberly. Senior marketing director at 32 is remarkable. The gesture, though late, meant more than I could express. 6 months later, I received an exciting job offer from a prestigious marketing firm in Boston. The position was a dream opportunity with even greater responsibility and creative control than my current role. In the past, I might have declined immediately, unwilling to move away from family obligations. Now I gave it serious consideration. When I told my family about the offer during Sunday dinner, I watched carefully for their reactions. There was initial disappointment, but also surprising support. "You would be amazing at that job," Jason said sincerely. "They would be lucky to have you." "Boston is not so far," Mom added, though I could see the effort it took her to focus on my needs rather than her desire to keep me close. "We could visit." Dad simply asked, "What does this opportunity mean for your career long term?" Their questions centered on what I wanted, what would make me happy, how this fit into my professional goals. The shift was subtle but profound. I accepted the position, and Thomas decided to come with me, finding a software engineering role at a Boston tech company. The weeks before our move were bittersweet, filled with genuine family moments that felt more authentic than any we had shared before. On our last night in Chicago, my parents hosted a proper going-away party. Friends, colleagues, and family gathered to celebrate not just my new position, but the journey that had led me there. During a quiet moment, Mom found me alone on the patio. "I want you to know something," she said, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "That note you left us was the most painful thing I have ever read, but also the most necessary. You forced us to see what we had been doing to you. You forced me to see what kind of mother I had been." "Mom, no, let me finish. I am not perfect and I still make mistakes. But I am trying to be the mother you deserve, not just the mother I thought you needed. I am proud of you, Kimberly, not just for your success, but for your courage in standing up for yourself even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard." As I prepare to leave for Boston tomorrow, I realize the greatest gift my family crisis gave me was not just healthier relationships with my parents and brother, but a deeper understanding of my own worth. By setting boundaries, I taught them how to respect me, but I also taught myself that I deserve that respect. The journey has not been easy, and our family is still a work in progress. But now, when my phone buzzes with a message from home, I no longer feel dread. Sometimes it is just my mom sending a funny meme. Sometimes it is my dad asking about my day. Sometimes it is even Jason sharing a success or asking for advice, not demands. And that note, I left the one that said, "Let him handle it now." It changed all of us, not just me. Jason has grown more independent, more capable. My parents have developed new skills and confidence in solving their own problems. And I have learned that sometimes walking away is not an ending, but a new beginning. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with people you love? How did it change your relationship? Share your experience in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do both for yourself and others is to stand firm in your own worth. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage in your own.